Get Heavy Podcast, hosted by Craig Casamas and John Scheimer.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Get Heavy Podcast. A few things before we get started. Today's episode is brought to us by Fatty Vegan.
FV.
That's
Fatty.
right. So, John's new vegan spot, punk rock fucking hangout here in Ventura, California. Lots of good food, changing menu all the time. Come check it out.
It's about to be the hangout spot because we're about to be able to hang out
Yeah, this is true.
at spots.
Beautiful.
I saw people bowling on Instagram today in California.
Really? Wow, that's awesome, man.
Like, whoa.
Yeah. Follow Fatty Vegan 805 on all social medias for updates, pictures of glorious food, all that stuff. Come in and get some treats. Also on this podcast, I want to go ahead and mention that we're doing a promotion on the Patreon right now. $1 a month gets you in the door. Early access to these episodes, bonus footage, and then we're starting to do tour stories from all of our guests that are going to be exclusive to Patreon. If you want to hear some wild shit that you probably shouldn't hear on these podcasts, it's going to be all in there. For the people that sign up for the $5 tier, we will ship you a free mask. So that's like a $10 plus shipping value for the month of March. So go ahead and sign up for that. And then what else do we got? Oh, on a personal note, my band Tongue is releasing a new music video on this day this podcast drops. A new lyric video for my for a song Sand. It's written and designed and made by our guitar player Bill Benson. Pretty cool. So look for that on all of my social medias and Tongue. You can follow us on Spotify and Bandcamp and all that jazz. So check that shit out.
Check out Tongue, the record of 2020 that no one heard.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. And then Ron, give him the rundown on Ron tonight, John.
We got Ron Martinez, booking agent for Crawl Space Booking. I should have probably brought up a list of how many bands he books, but I deal with Ron a lot through Numbskull and booking bands. He books all of the cool punk bands that I've always loved and dealt with. He books Leftover Crack. He books the Casualties. I mean, let me bring up his
Spitz.
list. No, he doesn't do. He's
Not
done
Spitz.
No. He's in the lower Class Brats. He's in
Ah.
Final Conflict. He's a great dude. He's an old school OG, early '80s LA punk. My boy Ron, what's up, man? How's it going?
Dude, it's been literally over a year since we've seen each other.
Exactly. It's been a year. So me and Ron were dealing with it directly up until the pandemic started last year, because we had a major tour that was supposed to be. We had like 2 months of touring planned out together.
And it was literally like every day texting or getting on the phone, like,
yeah,
man, are we gonna have to cancel this tour?
Yeah, it's like what are we doing? Where are we at? It was crazy. So it's been a year, man. Fucking A, what's up? I was literally just we were just doing like a little intro thing for you, and I was like, all right, let me see if I can list all of the bands that Ron books under Crawl Space before he comes on. I had a minute and a half to do it, and I wasn't able to pull it off.
He was only in the E's.
Is that a good thing?
No, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. You just book. You book.
Did you take that from the website?
I did, and I know that
that's the whole team though. That's Henry. Yeah. That's Jay Crash and Cat too. So yeah. I do have so many bands just on my own where I'm like, I've got too many fucking bands.
Yeah, he got through the E's and I was already tired. I was exhausted hearing it.
Yeah, it's I'm a madman.
Okay, yeah, man.
So are we gonna get heavy or what?
We're here, dude. We're here.
Yeah. So welcome. This is Craig.
We met many years ago. I was in the fucking Wrath with John.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So you helped us out a couple times in Austin and stuff like that, man. So it's been a minute. It's been a hard minute.
Definitely.
It's a pleasure to see you again.
You're in a band with the second hardest working man in Ventura.
Right.
The other John.
We call him the Prince of Nardcore.
Yeah. The fucking band whore is what
Yeah.
I call him.
It's endless, dude. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, man, it's nice to see you again.
It's good to see you both, actually.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, how you doing, man? How's things happening for you in 2021 going forward right now?
Hopefully better. I mean, keeping busy, you know, since we have no real touring, no live shows that are COVID, you know, safe,
Right.
except for the occasional drive-in or whatever. I mean, none of my bands are touring. It seems a lot of the bands that I represent, a lot of them are like, yeah, man, we'll see you in 2022. You know,
Yeah.
I'm working on some stuff that you and I will talk about off camera.
Right.
So basically right now, like a lot of the industry consensus is we are hoping that as far as sustainable work, like sustainable touring where a band can actually be on the road for an extended amount of time will be this fall. Hoping. But we really just got to see what the numbers are like, man. And really that'll be, you know, like, because we're gonna have, you know, there's a lot of people who won't take the vaccine. There are people who are afraid to take the vaccine. You know, like I've got friends who aren't conspiracy theorist type people. They're just really cautious, and they're like, I'm worried if I take the vaccine that a third arm will grow out of my back or something, you know. And so regardless of your opinion on that, there's going to be we're not going to just get rid of this right away, and I'm wondering like how this is going to go once shows start going. I think that masks will be kind of a norm thing. You will see certain people wearing masks at shows, certain people that don't care or feel safe, you know, that won't. But right now we're like kind of at this crucial time, like us booking agents, where we're kind of like in stasis right now because everything is so fluid. It changes daily, and I think we really won't be able to tell for about maybe give it another 2 months till we really can see the landscape, see the numbers, you know, follow the science, so to speak, and see where we're at, and then we can really make some, you know, some plans. I actually got an email from a festival that says like, we're good to go. We've got our permit. We're going to do it. And the only reason why I'm not going to say what festival it is and it's not Punk Rock Bowling, because it's got, this one's supposed to happen a bit before Punk Rock Bowling, is in case they, like I said, everything's so fluid. I don't want to go and say that it's gonna happen, but this one pretty big festival, it seems to be intent on happening.
Yeah.
You know,
well, I'm wondering too, like if it's gonna be more regional for a while. You know what I mean? Like obviously California is super locked down, but you wear a mask in Florida, they look at you like you're an asshole. You know what I mean? So it might be. I wondered if you guys were starting to like look at specific regions or something to be able to possibly start booking earlier than. I mean, fall seems like the time, you know, but it seems very unlikely like a full blown U.S. tour. You know what I mean? Or especially in Europe, I have no idea what would happen over there, but you know, it seems like I would be thinking like regionally, like, you know, you can get away with some shows in Florida, in the South, probably, you know, stuff like that. There's certain areas where they just don't give a fuck, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think too, it has to do with the city and how dense the population is, because yeah, there's certain cities where the COVID numbers are really low because there's not a lot of people there. There's a lot of population, and you got people that are pretty good about masking up, so their numbers are low. So I think it will depend on areas. I'm kind of focusing, at least for like what I'm doing, there are certain definitely working on the West Coast and avoiding certain areas where we just it's kind of known where they're just like not going to follow the science, and there's probably going to be, it's just like safety. I've had specific artists and stuff go, we're not going to that area for a while,
right.
You know, until things are really like down. You know, like I said, every day it changes because this is so new to all of us. This isn't like a measles outbreak where scientists have understood the virus and the disease for so many years. I mean, they're learning new stuff about this virus every day. So
Well, also the fear of, a band doing everything they should be doing, masking up, getting a vaccine, this and that. But, you can't account for them. How many times do we shake hands, fist bump, have a beer, take a shot with people, and if a band starts to get it on tour, it grenades the whole tour. All that work is for nothing. You know what I mean? The whole band's sick. You're like, man, like at what point do you really want to risk it? As an artist, for me, no, I don't. I'm not interested. You know what I
I'm
mean?
not.
Not until it's relatively okay.
Yeah, personally for me, as an artist, like not as a booking agent, but as a musician that tours and everything, my feeling is this is like, and why both bands that I'm in we haven't played is, and we've discussed it, is it's just at this present time, yeah, you have a lot of people that are out there that don't are not really well informed or just flat out don't care. And I would feel horrible knowing that we were, if we played a show, either band I was in, that gathered a bunch of people and drew people that were irresponsible, got other people sick. I would feel responsible for that.
Yeah.
Like, man,
Right.
if we didn't organize that show, if we didn't play, those idiots that knew they were infected with COVID. And the reason why I bring this up is this, is that I had gotten footage sent to me by a friend who was at a skate park show and was just kind of with the camera, and they said, I know two people that are here that are I'm trying to think of the term right now, asymptomatic,
Yeah.
Okay.
and they're here right now.
Perfect.
Now I don't know if that is entirely, if that was a true thing. The
Right.
person who sent it to me, I have no reason to doubt them, but who knows? But the thing was, is I was like, wow, man, if they really are asymptomatic and they're there, that's kind of shitty, like, so I just kind of put it on myself, that I can make the choice as a musician to play or not play. And
Right.
I choose, and my bandmates have agreed too. Like, we've all discussed it, where we're just like, yeah, you know what? We've been doing this for such a long time. It's okay for us to sit it out for a while, because we're all older dudes. We've played tons of shows. We don't need to be out there, and we don't want to feel responsible if something like that were happen. Now, there's a lot of other bands that are out there that are playing right now. Honestly, like, that's their thing. It's their band. They could do whatever they want.
Right.
Like, that they can run their band the way they see fit, so, but for me, it's like, I can wait, and I've yet to see a show any going on yet that has ever had a lineup of a band where I thought, now that is a lineup worth getting COVID over.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
all the bands playing, all the shows that are happening, it's like that's what I'm gonna go out on. You know what I mean? It's like an alcoholic going, like, and you go drink a bottle of midnight or something like that.
exactly. It's
Mad Dog 2020. You know what I mean? Like that's what you go out on. You're like,
Yeah.
that's what you're going out on.
Or you just have to, like, you're willing to risk your life to go eat at a restaurant, and you go to the Olive Garden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same
Girl,
thing.
we're drinking COVID. Applebee's. It's
Yeah.
perfect.
Exactly. Because like, all these shows that I've seen that are happening, I'm just like, yeah, I mean, these are all bands I could see at another time, and there's not, like, it's not like they said, like, like I said, we're getting the Jam back together again. Paul Weller has agreed to play. Like,
Right.
I'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
like,
That's when we're pining over it.
Yeah.
That's when we're like, oh my God, like, what are we gonna go?
exactly. That would be like, fuck, this is so fucked up. Like,
It's an original lineup Pink Floyd reunion. You ready? You're all, maybe. I might be ready, dude.
Ian Mackay says, okay, we're doing the Minor Threat reunion. It's happening next week.
Yeah.
No masks required.
Yeah. At the Moose Lodge, in fucking at the Moose Lodge.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Invite only. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
you're right though. I mean, the guys that are really out there now, you hear it and you're like, there's no way I'm going to that. Like, period. You know, and there's
and it's
stuff
like, hey,
happening
man,
out here underground. You know what I mean, and stuff too. I hear about it, house shows, and I'm like, you're out of your mind, dude. There's no way. You know.
And I'm just like, hey, man, you do you, man. Like, that's fine. You know,
And
like,
as much as I want, I work with guys, and I'm in the construction field, and I work with guys that are absolute full blown conspiracy theorists. I don't really buy into a lot of it, but I'll take the fucking nanobots, dude. And if it gets me closer to going to a show or the Bill Gates disease or whatever it is, the conspiracies are, I'll take it. I want it, dude. I don't care if I grow a third arm in a year.
I
I
think
just want to be out again and be able to go to a
yeah,
show and enjoy myself for once.
I
You
think
know what I
the
mean?
greatest meme that I've seen about all that is that one with Bill Gates sitting at the table, and it says, "You're not important enough to be tracked" or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Prove me wrong, and I'm just like, really? Like, you really think that Bill Gates wants to like?
Well, he
That
already
dude has
got you, dude. He's got you. You got your phone in your hand.
exactly.
They
It's like,
got you, dude.
if you have a smartphone,
Mhm.
and shut the fuck up.
Right.
Shut the fuck up about being controlled and like whatever, because they know where you are all the time. They can hear you. They can hear you masturbating and then crying to Pornhub.
Yeah.
Like they know already. They know
Yeah.
what you're up to. So
Yep.
just shut up. Shut up
Yeah.
with your conspiracy theories. Just say, I don't want to take the vaccine. I'm
Right.
afraid to, or something. Like,
Yeah.
I'm worried that I'm gonna have some side effects. I'm gonna have bigger pot tits or something. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. It's something I've been thinking about lately. It's like woke ignorance. You know what I mean? You're like, huh, okay. So you're so incredibly smart. You're ignorant. I mean, I don't. You know what I mean? It's like you don't. It's like woke ignorance. Like you don't have any frame of reference, but you're so outspoken about everything. You're like, God damn.
Well, everyone is so afraid of being perceived as ignorant that they're afraid to say, you know what, I really don't know, or I really don't have an opinion on that.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with going, you know what, I don't know much about that. I don't know. I don't have an opinion because I don't want to. Everyone has to have, some kind of stance on everything, or they'll have a contrary, we all have to have that friend that has to be contrarian about everything. Devil's advocate, shut up.
Shut up.
Just shut up, bro. Like,
Yeah.
it's not there are plenty of conspiracies out there. There's plenty of shady shit going on, that we do know. Like, I don't know, black people getting murdered by the cops and the cops getting away with it.
Yeah. Which isn't much of a conspiracy. It just happens.
It's
all
right
day.
in front of your face,
Totally.
and it's still happening. Like, why don't we worry about that? So it's like, it's nuts. But I don't know. What have you guys been? So you're working construction.
Yeah, actually, I work with.
John, you got Fatty. John's got Fatty Vegan now.
Fatty
Mr. Restaurateur.
Yeah.
Hey,
I actually work. I do the same job as your old bandmate Warren. So I'm an instructor for local 12. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like Warren's out in Burbank, man, like building shit.
Yeah, he went back to work. Actually, he was a teacher for a long time, a crane instructor, and I teach dirt. I do dirt work, but we work for the training trust, local 12 training trust. But yeah, he went back to work. I guess make a lot more money out there. But,
what I've been doing is just keeping busy as much as possible. I figured, I've been playing bass in bands for I don't know, close to 20 years. I figured I'd actually learned how to play it finally.
Okay.
So I'll actually pick that stupid thing up. Like, okay, 4 strings. And I've been doing some writing. Final Conflict, we're actually not doing anything because one of the band members' wife is a nurse and is at risk constantly. So we're not all getting together in that. With the Brats, we all have everyone in the band, we have to be very quarantined because we all have wives and significant others that some are immune compromised. So we've had to be careful. So it actually benefited us because we've all had to be so careful that we have been able to rehearse we rehearse at a studio that's like COVID safe and everything, and we wear masks when we rehearse and keep our distance. And we've been writing. We're already like over about half a record done of a new album. Our new record isn't even out yet. That was delayed because of COVID. So we've been writing. We took a little break on rehearsals when the numbers really spiked up.
Yeah.
And we decided, we don't need to. Yeah, we're good, you know. Right. And so, but we're going to start resuming rehearsals in a few weeks and get back on and start. So we're gonna our plan is we're gonna release the Brats. Will be releasing a brand new album in about 3-4 months. By the time that we're actually playing live shows, we'll be promoting a brand new record, and that will probably come out right after, like early 2022.
Yeah, so we're a bunch of songs to play live.
Yeah, we'll have a bunch, you know. But not that it'll matter. They still want us just to play Ultraviolence and just
Ultraviolence like 5 times, please.
Thank you. My favorite of playing live shows is always when someone yells the song that you just played 4 songs ago.
Yeah.
And they're like intently yelling at you, like, dude, listen to me, man. You've got to play this song. And then you're like, what? Which one? And you're like, we fucking played that 4 songs ago, guys.
He's like, I was in the bathroom.
Yeah, I was having a cigarette.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
The Brats. So the Brats was a band that you joined when you were in Austin, when you moved to Austin, Texas, right?
Yeah, I was living in Austin, and it was supposed to be temporary. I was just going to fill in.
What made you move to Austin, Texas, from lovely Los Angeles?
It was time for a change. My wife and I discussed it, and it was just like let's. She kind of had like this idea and a plan to and going to university out there, and I was spending so much time there anyways, like constantly flying out there because I was working with like 5 different Austin bands, and I really liked it. So why not? And I've always felt that like you should move somewhere else, like never stay where you're from. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but you should always go and try and live somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because if you can make it somewhere else, you can make it anywhere else on the planet.
Right.
And so I lived there for about 7 years, and then and it was good. But then it was time to leave. I had a really strong feeling that Trump was going to get elected, and there was a lot of thing about red state politics that we couldn't tolerate. So it was like, and my parents are getting a little older, and I knew I wasn't going to have much time with them. So it was time to come back home. So moved back like 5 years ago.
And I remember also because you went out there before the major California push of moving to Austin.
Right.
Yeah, but man, as we were out there, it was like everybody started moving, and basically Austin turned into mini Los Angeles, in not the good ways about Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And it was just, rents were going up and everything like that. And again, even though Austin's an extremely liberal city, it's still a red state politically. It's still being run by old white guys in cowboy hats.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I don't think, I don't want to stay here underneath a Republican president, so it got out in the nick of time. Yeah. And Southern California is my home. I grew up here, and I love it. I like being back in California, but I loved living in Texas as well. Like there's a lot of great things about Austin, and I really liked San Antonio and Houston and Dallas as well. Like the major cities are awesome.
Yeah, it's a cool little spot down there. And I remember when you were moving back, you were like, it's just time. Time to come home, like you weren't bummed on Austin or anything like that. It was just time to come home.
Yeah, exactly. It was time. Like, I knew I had limited time with my family. Like my father just passed away on February 11th.
Oh, sure.
And but I knew like I wasn't going to have much more time with them. So it was like, it was time to come home.
Yeah, to be able to make that adjustment for yourself to really, focus on that is it's so invaluable. We get so busy in our lives that you forget the real important parts of it. You know what I mean? Spending time with your parents and family and all that stuff. So for you to be able to do that is great. I did want to ask, you touched on, the Trump thing. I always see this, this callback to the Reagan era and Trump, the comparisons and stuff. And for being a dude like you that grew up in these original, the OG punk times in the Reagan era, do you see real correlations? Do you think it's worse? What do you think about it? Like, do you think about it like that, or is it just another time in shit politics?
I think that politics runs in cycles.
Right.
And I do think it's very, very similar to what was going on during the Reagan era. The significant difference that just comes to mind right away is the fascism and the racism is just right out front.
Yeah.
This time. Like, they're not hiding it. They're not, and because you'll see a lot of people who romanticize Reagan.
Oh,
and even like some liberals that'll sit there and say, like that'll complain about Trump or the new Republicans, and they'll sit there and say, it's not like the old Republican Party like Reagan and blah blah blah. And it's like, no, fuck Reagan too. Fuck him then. Fuck him now. Fuck his politics.
Mm-hmm.
He was just as racist, just as classist as the rest of them.
He spoke a little bit better. He could speak a little bit better.
Yeah,
that was about it.
He spoke a little bit better.
Yeah.
I mean, and one of the reasons why we have such a homeless problem nowadays is because back then they decided that they weren't going to fund the mentally ill and literally kick these people out in the street.
Yeah.
And that's what started the homeless epidemic across our country. I mean, that's just one of the many things. And trickle down economics, which doesn't work, that, never worked. It only benefits, the top tier.
Mm-hmm.
But the big difference is now, like, the Republican Party, for so many years, their classism and their racism was coded, and behind the scenes. And now it's just like, you have like a lot of talk radio kind of led into it. Guys like Rush Limbaugh that just pushed the envelope and kept pushing the extremities, which opened the gateways to what led to Trump, and where people were like, that's acceptable, like, so what if he says that, that's why when a lot of people who supported Trump and they say, well, I like him because he speaks like me. And it's like, oh, so you're racist too?
Yeah. No, for sure.
Good. That's good. No.
Well, I always think like, I would never want you in charge. A guy that speaks like him, like, I don't want that fucking, you're a moron. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want that guy in charge, like, period. And they're like, yeah, he speaks like me. I'm like, that's not what I want, man,
Yeah, like I've been really fortunate, like, growing up in Southern California, and where I grew up was racially mixed, you know. So I've had, throughout my life, I've been fortunate not to have as many shitty experiences of racism and hate directed at me because I wasn't white. Okay.
Right.
As other people, but the few that I've had, I've never been insulted by anybody called, a racial term like a spick or a beaner or a wetback, by anyone who was intelligent.
Yeah. Right. Of course.
Okay. Like, it's just never happened. But not by one person that ever I went, I don't agree with this person, but I understand. They have a point about like where they're coming from. No, it's always been lowest common denominator, and I think like we're just at this point where it's just the veil is off. There's no, the Republican Party was now the Trump Party, and it's all about me. They have their platform is crying about finally feeling the consequences of their shitty behavior. That's all they do. It's like CPAC this weekend was just whining about cancel culture, not mentioning the COVID pandemic, not mentioning the economy, not talking anything, but complaining about cancel culture, which is consequence culture is what it is.
Yeah, consequence culture.
It's you do something or say something stupid, you might face the consequences. Because but that's all the Republican Party now has, is just whining about playing the victim and, cancel culture after me, spreading falsehoods, and but no platform. And that's what they're going to go for now, is this try to make people feel that they're being put, trying to make white people think that they're the being oppressed, and that they're, just because everyone else is going to get treated equally. Like, people keep forgetting that equal rights doesn't mean less for anyone. It's equal for all. That's all it is.
Yeah, exactly. It's not taking a little chunk here and giving it over here. It's just raising these people up over here to the same level as everyone else. It's not bringing anyone else down.
Or at least a little closer to the same.
Yeah. Because I mean, but people just love to be shit on. They love to be, humiliated. They love to vote for a fake billionaire, a fake, businessman. Like, people voted for him the first election thinking that he was the guy that he was on The Office. Sure, he's an ass. Sure, he says stupid things, but he's a really good businessman. He's never been a good businessman. He played one on reality TV, and that's who they voted for. I hope he does run again, because he doesn't have a chance in winning. He really doesn't. He's just going to further tarnish the Republican Party.
Yeah, he's just splitting up the Republican.
He's just gonna. It's like that book that came out. Everything Trump touches dies, and it's a fact. And I say this as, like, I'm not a Democrat. I'm a left-wing progressive thinker. But a lot of my progressive thinking gets ruined by the reality of life as well, but I'm not like, I'm not a Joe Biden fanatic. He wasn't my choice for president, but I would have voted for a flaming dog turd if that was who ran against Trump, because a flaming dog turd was still smarter than Trump and not as racist.
You could have put a German Shepherd literally up for election, and I'll bet you the German Shepherd would have won.
It's like that same meme that went around when everyone was trying to get a picture of a pickle to get more likes than Nickelback. It's like, it completely happened, like, immediately, But I did want to ask, like, so obviously in all this, I've always said that bad politics makes great punk rock, right? So, I mean, there's an argument for all these shit politics in reaction to Reagan back in the 80s spawned this massive movement of punk. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more to it than that, but, like, was it that vibe back then? You know what I mean? Like, was that what fueled you into getting into punk rock? Was it political, or was it just what was around? Like, how did you start getting into this whole entire music scene?
How did I start getting into punk?
Yeah, I mean, was it the Reagan era, that whole time and place, or was it just
No, I actually, man, I gotta think. When did Reagan get elected?
80.
1980?
Yeah.
Okay, I kind of gatewayed through punk because I've always been a music fanatic, and I've always listened to everything. Okay, so it kind of gatewayed in like 77, 78. I got really into bands like British New Wave. Like, punk had already it was already around, but I got really into like Elvis Costello and American New Wave stuff, like when Tom Petty was considered New Wave, Boomtown Rats, the Pretenders, and stuff like that. And I knew what punk was, but it just because I had seen like the Sex Pistols on some like news shows and stuff, and it just kind of seemed like, like, okay, that's dumb, And then what the turnaround was for me was that I went and saw at the Los Cerritos Mall, which is still, that mall's still there. I went to go see Rock and Roll High School with a friend of mine, which had the Ramones in it. And I only knew a little bit about the Ramones, but we wanted to see the movie because it was, like a modern rock and roll, Roger Corman thing. And seeing that and seeing how cool the Ramones were. And then, there's like a 5 or 6 songs that they just showed the band playing at the Roxy. And that live set performance is so dynamic. I was like, and again, like, I already knew about punk but that was my full-blown exposure, was watching that live scene on a big screen. And I was just like, okay, Punk is pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
I'm into this, you know. And then I immediately like I went to a music store and I went looking for some punk music and I bought the cassette London Calling. And that was still like, you know, in that gateway. I got London Calling, then I went and bought Ramones Road to Ruin. And then I was like, okay, I like some punk, you know.
I mean,
now
London,
the whole jumping,
that's a pretty
the whole jumping into it was when I heard Black Flag though. When I heard No Values on Rodney on the Rock, that was it for me. I was like, oh, I'm so in. And nice. I literally went and buzzed my hair and I, you know, went to the thrift store and I bought some, you know, leather biker boots and put bandanas on them. And, you know, that was the end, you know, but the politics definitely came after that, you know, not until like getting, you know, discovering bands like, you know, the Dead Kennedys for sure. And then like reading the lyrics and like, what is this? Who, you know, getting the Holiday in Cambodia single and wondering who the hell Pol Pot was.
Right.
And then I picked it up, you know, and wow, this guy screwed up. Okay, so now I understand what this means. Then learning about Crass and hearing and reading about Crass and Slash magazine, getting Nagasaki Nightmare 7-inch, you know, not knowing what they sound like, just being intrigued, and then having all that literature in that record. And then it just snowballed from there, like MDC and a lot of the bands having the literature where I was kind of like, all right, I get this. Like, and wow, things are, you know, I've been listening to bands saying things are screwed up, but they're explaining how they get screwed up and why they're screwed up. And that was it, you know.
Yeah, because punk rock has been a political movement for so long, you know, almost in the background. Obviously, you have your caveats of people that just are doing their thing, but you know, it's been driven as a political genre of music for forever. You know what I mean?
It's always been a left-wing thing, but you didn't have to be political to enjoy it.
Right.
Yeah,
you didn't have to be political to be a part of it. You could be fun. And you could just enjoy the music, but it's always had a leftist reactionary thing, you know, always. And anybody that goes and says like these guys that go and say conservative is the new punk, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
You're cute, but it's not. And like, quit making excuses for being a shitty person. Like, you know, don't be that's like the Gigi Allen fan like explanation. It's punk. No, you're just an asshole.
It's the old school, like being an asshole just in the name of punk. You're like, that's not punk. That's just being a fucking asshole.
Yeah, you can be an asshole anywhere, you know, in concert. Don't blame punk for being an asshole.
You can be an asshole with a mohawk, and you can also be an asshole driving a gigantic raised truck. You know what I mean? It's the same asshole, man. Different haircut, you know.
So you mentioned the Ramones movie, and then No Values by Black Flag. What was your first show that you went to?
The first punk rock show?
Sorry, the first punk rock show. Yeah.
Okay, first punk rock show, like intentionally going to see
intentionally going with your friends. You know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, we're going. That excitement filled, you know, like. When you
going to see the Plasmatics. I saw the Plasmatics at Perkins Palace on the tour for the Welcome to 1984 album, which was their second album.
Yeah.
And that was the first like deliberate punk rock show that I went to. The first punk rock gig, like local show, was I actually just recently, because of the Nat at Radiation Records, he actually bought a flyer collection and he showed me the flyer and I bought it or actually gave it to me. This was the first punk show I ever went to, which was the Middle Class, Dead Skin, the Aesthetics at Old World in Huntington Beach.
Hell yeah, man.
and I'd only seen this flyer in the possession of my friend who I went to the show with, and he, you know, I tried to trade, he wouldn't let me have it, and for years, and it took 30 plus years, but I finally got a copy of the flyer. And this is the first local punk show I ever went to.
Nice. What year was that?
This was 81 too, as well. It was the date July 31st. You probably can't see it, but here's the most awesome thing is it says on the bottom here, no poop allowed. and I completely forgot what it, and then a friend of mine, Steve, that I grew up with, reminded me what poop meant. And poop back then meant preppies or other posers.
Oh, okay. So the poser term was being thrown around back then too.
Oh yeah, like you're you're punk. You like Devo and the B-52s. You're a poser.
Right. Yeah.
So okay, so you went to your the Rock and Roll High School. You go see that. You go to your first show in '81. When did you get around to joining Final Conflict? How did that all come about?
I met the guys in Final Conflict maybe in late 1984. I was singing in this band called Convicted, and the Inconvicted, the drummer was this guy named Dave Phillips. We were both in Convicted, and Final Conflict would rehearse in the room next to us, and we became like brother bands. And Convicted and Final Conflict played shows together, and we just became really tight. And then one day Jeff, the guitar player, says, our bass player Rob quit. We need another bass player. And so I was like, hey, my best friend Warren, he plays bass. So Warren joined Final Conflict. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know, a few months go on, and Dave Phillips and I used to always, whenever there was a break in our room, we would go and watch Final Conflict rehearse because we loved them. We thought, we go, God, like I wish our band was as good as Final Conflict, Right. One day we're at the Olympic, and we'd hang in with Jeff and Mary and all of us, and get a little loose lip because we've been drinking those, and we finally just say, man, like Final Conflict is so good, man. I wish, we wish we were in your band. And Jeff's like, really? Yeah. And we're like, yeah. And he goes, okay. I'll just simplify it. Next thing I know, a few days later, Jeff calls me and says, I kicked out the singer and the drummer. We got rehearsal in a few days. And I was like, okay.
Sweet, man. Well, this is going to be awkward.
Yeah. It definitely was, because I think Jeff actually just told those guys, I'm breaking up the band, and then conveniently reformed the band with us.
Same name. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. And we rehearsed 3 days a week. We would rehearse Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. We recorded the first demo tape. I think we'd only been playing together like maybe 2 months, but we were tight as hell because like Dave Phillips was an amazing drummer. Mm-hmm. And and I'm playing with my best friend is in the band on bass, and it kind of took off from there because we were lucky because we just had like the right people seem to like what we're doing. Like if it had, the most important ones aside from Jeff Harp, who wrote the songs, was Big Frank, who once he heard our demo tape just put us on so many shows. He liked us so much. Right. And Frank was like that. Like if he liked your band, and that meant that you had to be good, or he knew that you were really believing in what you did, he'd give you a shot. And he didn't just help us out, he helped out so many bands. But if it wasn't for Big Frank helping us and getting us on so many shows, I mean, man, we opened up for the Bad Brains. Yeah. We opened up for like the first show that we ever did. We opened up for Conflict and Government Issue at Fender's Ballroom. Nice. Like that was the first show I ever did with Final Conflict. Wow. We got to play with everybody cool. And then Pusshead gets a demo and then contacts us and says, do you want to put out a record on my label? And it was those two guys, like, if it hadn't been for those two guys, we would have just been this obscure band that released a demo tape that people would talk about once in a great while, and like, we're still very much a cult band, we're not a big band. We're a band that gets remembered, like by or much bigger bands will be seen wearing our t-shirts.
Right. So, is it still surprising to you that punk rock has continued this legacy for almost 40 plus years at this point? I mean, at any point you just think back and go, dude, what a trip? Like, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it is, but it makes me feel good because it what it did, what it's done is it's legitimized what we were saying when we were kids all along. Like, man, this is not a phase. This is a real thing. This isn't a trend.
Right.
Like this is real music. Like, and it's saying something. Like, I've always equated punk as to like just you know, another type of blues. It's working people's music that they get their frustrations out and tell their stories, and
I mean, if you think about it, it's almost one of the last working types of music invented. You know what I mean? Where, like, I mean, I guess hip hop would kind of be
hip hop
hip hop would probably be the last thing that was invented, but punk rock is right before it.
Yeah,
and like the last music invented where when you hear it, it's a music of the people, not this pop shit.
Yeah, and I think I talk about this thing a lot about modern culture and stuff, and the thing that makes me sad, and I really want to be proven wrong, is like, punk had brought a cultural shift with it, that's still being felt today, like even in fashion and in politics and in sound. I mean, there's like modern pop music that has like, where the vocalist is screaming and the guitars are super fast, and that's stolen from punk, which is great. It shows. But the one thing that makes me sad, and again, I hope I get proved wrong, is I really hope that we haven't, people have become so distanced from music that we're not going to have another cultural shift, because like we haven't had one since like really since like Nirvana, and since Nirvana, like and hip hop, where a band came and they didn't just change the way people thought about music, but a cultural shift came with them. Like that happened with the Ramones and the Sex Pistols, and then you move on. And it started even further back, in the 60s.
Yeah, when you think about Hendrix and the Beatles and all that,
Exactly. Where it wasn't just a record blew people's minds. A cultural shift came with it. And then punk did it a second time in the 90s. Then you have grunge. Prior to that, you had even Guns N' Roses, however anyone feels about them.
Yeah, it definitely
brought a cultural shift, because Guns N' Roses was a death knell to really bad, horrible hair rock and poodle rock stuff. Where I saw Guns N' Roses when they were a local band. I got dragged to see them headline at the Troubadour by a girlfriend of mine who was really into like glam punk, like Hanoi Rocks and stuff like that. And I made her go see COC in Compton when she didn't want to go to the show because she couldn't stand COC. So she said, I'll go to this show, but you go with me to go see Guns N' Roses at the Troubadour. Okay, fine. And I thought I'd get out of it, but I didn't. So we go to see Guns N' Roses, and it's these pretty lame, glammy opening bands. And she goes, listen, you're going to like Guns N' Roses. You love early Aerosmith. You love the Sex Pistols. This is exactly what they're like. They're like the first two Aerosmith albums and Sex Pistols, Never Mind the Bullets.
That's a good comparison, actually.
And I was like, bullshit.
Yeah.
Bullshit. They go on stage. The first song was Welcome to the Jungle. And this was like 1985.
And to hear that live instead of on the record for the first time would probably be fucking like, holy shit.
Exactly. And like they got into their second song, and I just looked at her and I said, you were right, I was wrong. I was like, these guys have like, it's punk attitude and swagger with the Rolling Stones. And I was just completely blown away. I saw them so many times after that as a local band. So the thing is like, I think, another band maybe that brought that was Metallica. And I don't know if we're going to have another Metallica or another Guns N' Roses or another Public Enemy or another, like a band that brings a culture shift. And I hope I'm wrong, but even like some of the later period bands that I do think are great, like bands like, I really like Radiohead. I look forward to their new material, but they didn't cause a cultural shift.
No.
Black metal did to an extent, not necessarily a cultural shift that was there was a lot of bad stuff like the National Socialism that got attached to it, but it brought some, because there's a lot of black metal stuff that I like a lot, because I like all kinds of music, but I really hope that there's something that happens that makes younger people go, oh fuck yeah, and I'm gonna pick up a guitar and I'm gonna do this. I'm going to make a noise and I'm gonna scream and I'm gonna, so because screw all this bullshit. But all I ever see is when it isn't some retro band on Saturday Night Live, it's these fucking dweebs with little keyboards going boop boop beep boop boop boop, boop. and I'm just like, oh God, like there's these things running through my head right now that are almost borderline like macho, like where I want to punch like every single band member.
Yeah.
Like I look at you and I want to punch you. Like, this music is crap.
Yeah.
And I know that you put it together. You didn't even play it live in the studio. You put it all together.
Yeah,
and then you learned how to play it live so you could play it live.
Right.
I mean, there's plenty of newer bands that are out, that like there's plenty of new punk bands that form that are great and stuff. I'm not saying that there's no new good shit, but what I'm talking about is something that
real
happens,
cultural shift.
a real cultural shift. And I get bummed when I think like maybe because there's not as many people that appreciate music. They didn't have the experiences we had when you would get a record. Like I could pull out any of these records behind me and I could tell you where I got it. Like, and if I got it like when I was much younger, I could even tell you like rode my 10-speed down Beach Boulevard, went in the Tower Records, went to go buy SSD controlled Kids Other Say, but they didn't have that, but they had this. I could tell you like it's just a different time, and we have so many more distractions that people just don't get attached to music as much as they used to.
Well, the thing, like what I see, I mean, especially with like my own kids, is that it's a generation that boredom isn't allowed, and boredom is what births all of our lives. You know what I mean? Like you do it because you're bored and this is what you want to do, and you fill your time doing what we've done. Nowadays the kids are just so, if they're not, if everything's not they're not stimulated 100% of the time, they can't do anything.
Yeah,
it's hard.
You're totally right. Like, and it's the same with us as adults. Like, try like not fooling with your phone when you're watching a movie, and I'm guilty of it too.
Oh yeah.
It's like I don't pay attention to a lot of social media aside from like Instagram. That's my only social media thing that I interact with, with other people or anything. And then I have a Twitter, but it's just so I can follow other people. It's not a Ron Martinez Twitter or anything like that. It's just so I can follow certain people that like pundits and musicians and artists that I like. And I don't even bother with the comments on them. I just read what the people I follow post, and that's it.
Yeah.
I got rid of Facebook a long time ago. No regrets of that. I think it's like been over 5 years. I haven't had a Facebook.
Well, even like speaking to that cultural shift thing, it's like we talk about it a lot, like, the modern day world genres are dead, dude. You know what I mean? Like, and there's a real argument that a band like Death Grips really caught a weird cultural shift. You know what I mean? With this just out of control multi-genre chaos that came out. You know what I mean? And I think a lot, like as a punk who still loves, I love all my shit, Neurosis, Cicero's God, fucking all the bands. Like, I've had to really realize that there are these things happening, and they're stemmed in the genres that I loved, but they are operating under different landscapes. You know what I mean? Like, because when you hear bands like that are just so raw and they scared the shit out of the modern world a little bit, you know what I mean? And other bands like that, you know what I mean? I think it's just, I have to take myself to really, I have to roll it back and think like, I still like to be surprised by the fact that there are people doing interesting, cool shit. Whereas when you were a punk, you were allowed to like Devo and then also Queen and then also all these things. Whereas the kids now do as well. You know what I mean? My daughter listens to everything from Duran Duran to the like most wild YouTube video game songs. You know what I mean? And they just some of these newer bands are incorporating every genre of music, and some of them are not doing it well, but some of them are doing it really well in like really interesting ways. You know what I mean? Will it cause a real paradigm shift in the culture? I don't know, but it's very possible to be in a
See,
way we never expected. You know what I mean?
I think with nowadays though, it's hard. Like I understand that stuff's happening, but I don't see it as a paradigm shift.
Well, yeah,
As far as like what like Nirvana did,
right.
the Ramones and punk rock did, even like what Guns N' Roses did. He was saying, just because like there's so much of that stuff being flung out into the sea of the internet,
Right.
that nothing has staying power.
Well, that's another that's definitely an argument, man. I mean,
like right now, the mental capacity of humans cannot handle staying power.
Yeah.
Something has to happen. Something has to change.
Yeah. And then and the stuff flying at people like gets in the way of something else catching fire. Cause it's like I think a good way of explaining it is like, whether you like the band or not, like a band like Iron Maiden or a band like Metallica or U2, okay? Like those are huge arena bands, and they still have their followers of the 80s that were there when they started, and they even have young followers, like not just the kids of the original fans, okay? They like kids gravitate to that or Led Zeppelin. And but when those bands are gone, when Metallica finally says we're done playing live, we're done recording, and Iron Maiden, especially when Iron Maiden hangs it up, and Judas Priest, it's like, well, there's no one to replace them.
Yeah,
and now I'm not saying that there's not heavy metal bands or there's not punk bands or any genre that aren't good enough, if not better than those bands.
Yeah.
But they're like John said, so much stuff is coming at people. That they don't get to catch fire, like they don't get to like absorb themselves like we did in bands because the lack of information. So again, I worry like that they'll never. I want there to still be superhero rock star bands.
Yeah.
So young people can be inspired and go, I want to continue to make music, and do something. And I never thought about that till you brought that up, John. And that is definitely one of the bad things about the internet is like too much information, too much stuff coming at you, and never letting these newer bands, these hard workers, talented, never get a foothold in people's, minds, because it's just so much stuff's coming at you. Well, everyone feels like they got to be on top of everything and they can't just slow down.
Everything, everyone has to be. I mean, even it comes like the basic thing of, when you would hang out with your friends back in the day and we'd all sit around and listen to music, that was the only thing that was happening in the room.
Right.
Was music that was on the record player and maybe us hanging out, drinking some beers. You know what I mean? But we were all about this record that was on. Now you're hanging out with 5 or 6 people, everyone's sitting there looking at their own phone.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
in silence.
You go into green rooms nowadays, and they're the most boring things in the world. Everyone's just sitting there looking at their own fucking phone.
Yeah, their own little world. Like John, remember like when we were kids and you'd go like maybe 2 of your other friends to the record store and you would assign each other like, okay, now you buy this one. I'm gonna buy the Black Flag, and you buy the Germs album, and then I'll borrow yours in a couple days and tape it, and you could borrow mine. Like, and that's what it was all about. And and then getting together and like talking about the record and playing the record. Now it's just like, hey, check this record out, and you play one song. Okay, yeah, all right, and then you move on. Oh, check out this video game.
One thing that I've said for a while now is finding a new band now is so different because back in the day it was you discover a band from a thank you list. Check it out. Okay.
The T-shirt they were wearing.
All right, I got to search for this band. Now I got to search for this band. Like search high and low for this fucking record. And now, and then when you'd finally get it, it was like the fucking holy grail, and you would play that thing to death.
Oh yeah.
Now it's, oh, you hear about this band? Oh yeah, okay. Let me check out this band. Okay. Oh, here's a live show. Okay, cool. All right, let me watch a live show. Oh, that was cool. All right, let me download the record over here. All right, that was cool. All right,
on to the next.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
on to
Yeah,
the next.
exactly.
and like,
Yeah.
you get everything right there, and you're not even like, oh, it's not even like, man, I want to see that band live one day. It's like I can see him on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, one of the best bands, my favorite, and I think one of the greatest bands ever, Motorhead. I learned about Motorhead because I really liked Vice Squad. It's like 1982. I see a picture of one of the guys in Vice Squad wearing this cool shirt, and it says Motorhead, and it's got this beast thing on it. And then a few days later, I'm looking in this like flip side or something. There's GBH, and one of them is wearing a Motorhead shirt. I'm like, I got to find out about this band because two of my favorite bands have just, okay, they got to be cool because two cool bands like it. And then I discovered Motorhead, and that's how a lot, and the same thing, you kept seeing a band's name on thank you list or something, and then you were like, I got to find it. Oh wait, I found out they have a demo tape. Well, who's got it?
Yeah.
And tape trading with people, and when it come, it was like, and you play it, and it was like, and now it's just like, at your fingertips, and then it's just kind of like, oh, that was cool. All right, next.
All right,
lost in the ether.
Now I'm gonna go back and do my shit, do my stuff.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough to navigate. You know what I mean? I think we're gonna have a lot harder time with it than the new generation of people. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like I see my kids are okay at managing that stuff. I mean, they're all spend too much time on their phones, and we do too. But it's just a trippy world that I'm starting to see.
I mean, they like it's like every generation will come through and be like adapted to what we're complaining about.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I didn't grow up with the internet. I was like the last generation that didn't grow up with the internet.
I'm glad we didn't grow up like they are.
Yeah, especially right now, man.
Me, but
it's a trip, man. I don't know. It's just so hard for me to, you see, like even when Lemmy died, man, I really had and Bowie, I was like, it really made me realize, like, you are right. There is a limited lifespan for the old culture that we knew, and it's gonna all go away one day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and you never,
even with Black Sabbath not playing anymore, and you're just like, damn, dude, like you're just starting to see them bink, bink, bink. These stars are dying.
Continue. It's gonna continue.
Oh.
And you never thought about Lemmy dying. You knew he would, but you never thought about it. And like, we went and saw the last time he performed in Austin. I was still living there, and it was during a tour that they did with Saxon. He didn't make it past the second song, and I could tell, like, oh, he sounds rough. He looks rough. He stopped. They did, like, I think he just stopped, and he goes, "I'm sorry, I can't do this." He walks off stage. And then about maybe 3 or 4 minutes later, he walked back out, and he apologized to the crowd. He goes, "I'm really sick. I promise I'm gonna come back. Thank you so much." And me and the guys in the Brats, I mean, we were like, almost tears in our eyes.
Yeah,
dude.
Like,
that's the last time we're gonna see him.
Yeah. It's scary. It's wild, man.
Yeah, like, he ended up finishing that tour. I think they took almost a week off, but he did finish that tour, and he got better. But yeah, I mean, you just always thought of him as immortal. And when he died, you knew, like, okay, anyone, no one is infallible.
No one gets out of this. You know what I mean?
No one gets out of it. That lifestyle.
But it's inspiring because, there is almost no punker motherfucker on earth, someone that completely lived his truest life, his true self to the day he fucking died, that guy. You know what I mean? And no one had a bad story about him. Not one person. In the whole Me Too culture, everyone's a piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like, have you ever really heard anything seriously bad about the guy? Like, he was a speed addict, all these things, but you never hear anything like that about him. You know what I mean?
I think, because he just lived his life pretty transparent. Like, what you saw was what you got. But it's And now I'm like going, Lemmy's dead, but there will be a new Kid Rock record. Great.
Don't worry, Limp Bizkit's getting back together. We'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh God, dude.
That's gonna be our little quote from this podcast when we're advertising it.
Yeah, for sure.
He is dead, but there will be a new Kid Rock record.
Yeah,
man.
That's like always what I think of whenever like somebody I care about dies. Like even when my father passed away, I was like, my dad is dead and Trump isn't. This is bullshit. Like like when Lemmy died, I was like, oh yeah, but don't worry, there's gonna be a Kid Rock record, and Rage Against the Machine just announced getting back together again. Awesome.
Perfect. Yeah.
So at the top of this podcast, you mentioned that like if Minor Threat got back together, you would fucking have to question going out there and COVID practices and stuff like that. You've seen Minor Threat, right?
Yes. And
you saw Minor Threat.
Photographic evidence.
There is quite a famous picture. Give us the story behind that. First of all, I tried to find that picture on the internet. I don't know how to search for that photo.
Just put Minor Threat, Los Angeles, Ed Culver, and then it comes up because it's an Ed Culver picture.
Yeah. Was it Torrance 82?
It was at the Alpine Village in Torrance. The lineup was the Dead Kennedys, Minor Threat, MDC, the Zero Boys, and the Detonators.
Jesus Christ, how the fuck do you go to shows after that? Like,
I mean, if that was like would have been like
that was the norm.
But what's almost as good as that story of getting to see that show and how amazing, and I remember everything about that show. Like every band was amazing, but was the story of getting there, because Warren Renfro drove us there, and we went to that show in Warren's dad's pickup truck, this old Ford. Was it a Ford or a Chevy? But old school, with the tailgate, with the chain tailgate,
Hell yeah.
And it was a truck full of us punkers, 3 in the front cab, and then the rest, just all of us in the back of the truck.
Piled in.
All the way, like from Fullerton all the way to Torrance, like, in the back and screaming and going nuts. And then after the show's done, same thing. That show was great. And all was just screaming, and like now you couldn't get away with that, like I don't know. Isn't it against the law to be in the back of a truck without a cap?
Seatbelt laws.
Seatbelt.
You can't even put your dog back there now without it being a problem,
Yeah. So, but that's like, I remember us going to that show that way, and like that. And that's how much like we are not missing this show. And it was like Warren, I think, was the only one that could get a car, and it was the truck. So it's like, well, so be it. We're going in the back of the truck.
Yeah. So when did you discover that picture? We'll show the picture on the podcast. When did you discover that picture?
And what was going on in it?
It's just a bunch of kids dogpiling on the stage, surrounding Ian and screaming into the mic, and it's me and Pat Dubar, the singer Uniform Choice, in that, like the most recognizable. There's even another one of the crowd where Big Frank's in it that I've seen on the internet from another Ed Culver shot. But anyways, the first time I ever saw it was a friend of mine, and this had to have been about 1984. My friend Joy Aoki, who was a writer for Flipside, and she actually like did some artwork. Like she painted the album cover for Bad Religion Against the Grain, and she was a friend, and she ended up befriending Ed Culver. And I was at her house. She goes, "Oh, check out these photos I got from Ed," and she starts showing me these just amazing shots of Christian Death and just classic pictures. And all of a sudden he goes, "Look at this Minor Threat one," and it's that photograph of all of us together. And I go, "That's me." And she looks at, "Oh, holy shit, it is." And I'm like, "Can I have this photo?" And that was the first time I knew it existed. And she was like, "No, but I'll talk to Ed about getting you one." And it never materialized. And then, so fast forward, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe. And I'm driving, or I was somewhere. No, I wasn't driving, but I get a phone call on my cell phone, and I answer it, and this guy goes, "Hey, you don't know who I am, but I'm at this art exhibit in Santa Ana for all these old Ed Culver pictures, and there's a photo of Minor Threat, and you're in it." And I'm like, is it like a picture of Ian MacKaye with a bunch of heads like around? He goes, "Yeah, I'm looking at it, and it's really huge." And I'm like, "Where are you at?" So he tells me, and it turns out it's this punk art exhibit, and it was all these Ed Culver pictures, and it was mixed media and photographs. So we found where it was, and we went, and lo and behold, that picture was huge. And I've got a funny story to tell that ties in with this.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay, so I'm just like, wow, awesome, man. One day I'd love to be able to get one of those photos. So fast forward a few years later, and I'm at the Ventura Warped Tour.
Yeah.
And DOA and Channel 3 had both played that Warped Tour at the local punk stage.
Where they had the old school punk stage.
Yeah, the old school stage. So I was there. And anyhow, we are and Ed Culver actually had a merch booth, and he had that photograph up, like with a bunch of prints for sale and everything. And I'm talking with Mike from Channel 3 and Joey Shithead, and I point out the photo. I go, "Check out that photo. That's me." And they both look at it. They're like, "Oh shit, that is you." You know, like, "How old were you?" And I'm like, "Oh, I was 17." You know, and we start talking, and Ed Culver walks up, and they've known him for years, and they're like, "Hey Ed, hey, meet our Ron, our booking agent and stuff. But check this out. That kid right there, that's Ron." And so he looks at his photo and he goes, "Wow, that is you." And I'm thinking in my head, oh, great. This is Gateway. Like, he's making all this money off this print, and because it's been getting shown everywhere. I'm like, please. He goes, Ed Culver goes, "We're gonna have to talk, man, because I gotta get you one of these." And I'm like, "Oh, yes, I'm finally gonna get one, and I'm not gonna have to pay hundreds of dollars for it."
Yeah.
And right then and there, you know what? I'm gonna leave this guy's name out just because he's not here to defend himself, but he's a fucking tool. And he's a lead singer of a punk band, and anyone that knows me knows he and I don't get along very well. I insult him. He doesn't have a good comeback, and I just make fun of him all the time. But the dude's a tool. And this guy comes and ruins. He's like Bad Luck Schlep Rock. And he literally interrupts he sees us talking here. "Hey guys." And he goes, "Hey, Ron, did I ever tell you about when Ed took my band's photo?" And he just takes over the conversation. And I knew what was going to happen. And as he's talking, Joey Shithead walks away, and Mike McGran walks away from Channel 3, and I'm there. And then the very first chance he gets, Ed Culver just disappears, and I'm stuck with this fucking guy. And I just go, and I'm like, "Later, dude, whatever." Ed Culver never returned to the photo, never came back to the booth.
Oh, man.
I still haven't never gotten a print.
Damn.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I would definitely like to know that guy's name when we're done recording.
I'll tell you. The only reason why is because I would hate to hurt the feelings of one of his band's fans,
Right.
And also he's not here to defend himself.
Right.
Like, and say, "Hey man, like, whatever."
I didn't know I cock blocked you on a 30-year process you've been working on here. It's like,
yeah. Well, this guy's kind of notoriously known for for exhausting people in a room.
A punisher.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. He's a very well-known punisher.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Sure, I know him well. sure I know him well.
But you know what? I got a good story out of it, so it's still kind of cool. Like that photo is my holy grail.
It'll be so much sweeter when you actually do get it. You know what I mean?
If I do get it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if
Now you're down to if. It's
Yeah.
You know,
like,
you need to own that photo. Are you kidding me?
I do have the book though. I bought the book and it's really big there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like any time I've ever gotten some attitude from some hardcore guy, I've always thrown that in. Like, well, at least one of us in this room has seen Minor Threat, and it's not you.
At least one of these guys is dogpiled on Ian Mackay, and it ain't you, motherfucker.
Yeah.
I knew Ian when he was angry. Yeah.
That performance was amazing, and it was like from the first note. They opened up with "Screaming at a Wall." That was the first song, and it was from the first note. It was like someone opened up a can of whoop ass, and the room just exploded, and in the best way. It was not violent. It was just. You could even tell that they didn't expect the response because at the time they had just the 2 7-inches out and then the songs on the Flex Your Head comp. And that was what the live set was. It was all those songs. People demanded an encore. So they did Screaming at a Wall again. And I think Stepping Stone for a second time, or 12XU for a second time. Because they didn't have anything else. They came back to LA again on the Out of Step tour.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't catch them. They played Chatsworth on that. I couldn't get a ride that far because when you're, 18 years old, Chatsworth, a drive an hour away is like 6 hours,
Might as well be in Arizona,
Yeah, exactly.
Like, all right, man. That's amazing, dude.
But one of the greatest bands ever, one of my all-time favorites. That band can do no wrong in my book.
And you know what? I feel that rooms don't go off like that anymore. Like that kind of chaos, you know what I mean? Like that, that 80s and even into like the early to mid 90s, even late 90s, that kind of just were like a room that go. I mean, there's bands in the 2000s, early 2000s, I guess. But like the chaos, I feel that like people now that go off, kids that go off at shows are just replicating videos that they've seen of kids going off at shows instead of doing what kids in like the 80s and 90s were doing, which was just fucking losing their minds to the music. In a weird way, you know.
What, man? Annihilation Time might be like. There's been some wild Annihilation Time shows that I've been to. Man. People fucking go off, dude. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's the same, but there's been a few Annihilation Time shows where you're like, Jesus.
Yeah, you know what? It's happening. We're just the old guys in the back of the room, and we're not at those shows.
We're not in it anymore.
Definitely happening somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Because like I can think of quite a few like fucked up shows like that were I was just like, yes, this is why I got into punk rock. Like this, thank you, Fucked Up, for reminding me why I do this, like, and I've seen younger bands that have, maybe even if the crowd isn't responding like I think they should, the band is out, and I'm like, yes, this is why I still am involved in this. For bands like this, these four little assholes that are really doing their thing. Like, they're really doing it. And there's a very few, I mean, being, I'm 55 now. I've been going to punk shows since I was 14, 15. I've been fortunate to see so many great bands. And the thing that sucks at my age is when I get told about a band, you got to see this band, or, oh, this band's great. And unfortunately, the 55-year-old jaded fuck I am will see this band, and 90% of the time I'll be like, oh, this band is good, but this is just the Delta 5, like straight up. It's the Delta 5 and a little bit of Butthole Surfers, like I've seen this before, but I understand why these people are going nuts, because they didn't get to see the Delta 5 or get experience the Delta 5 when they were around, everything is derivative. But there still is like some of the bands that like are around, and not exactly newer, newish bands, like bands that I think are great, or like bands like Surfport, because they're genuine fucking weirdos.
Yeah.
Like,
I love that band.
and they really have that. Hey man, if you dig it, that's awesome. If not, that's cool because we're not here for you. You know, and they're genuine weirdos because like I miss going to. I love when I get to see a band where I actually feel where it's so chaotic around you, and you actually feel like something could go wrong any minute. The cops are going to bust in and crack heads, and it's scary and exciting at the same time. Like that was like what we got experienced when we were young.
Oh yeah.
The old threat of getting stabbed just isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
But I've been fortunate to have, like, I remember going to see the band Gehenna, the infamous Gehenna from Reno, Nevada. And they did that to me, like where I was just like, I met the singer. He said they were playing. I ended up in this little community center room and they just fucking tore that place apart. The singer even tackled me. Like, and I wasn't mad. I was like, fuck, these guys are making punk scary. Like, this is great. Like, this is, and the band's awesome, you know, and like, I like seeing that, you know. I think some of it is killed, like that energy level does get killed, like certain elements of the hardcore scene where they do that garbage, that crowd killing stuff.
Right.
And that's really just,
the hardcore
it's really a bunch of people who aren't really attached to the music, because if they knew the lyrics to the songs, they'd be up front screaming them and screaming along with the band. But most of these people, they all listen to their music through the internet and they don't own the physical product. They don't, and if they do, they don't look at the lyric sheets. So it's just their way of getting their energy out or whatever. And the few times I've gone to hardcore shows and that crowd killing stuff, man, I definitely feel like an old man where I want to scold them and like, come back to the room with that bullshit, man. Let the people who want it. But I got to remember, not my scene. I'm just I'm a tourist.
Yeah.
And just if the younger kids who want to be scrappy want to stop them, it's up to them to stop them and tell them to quit being assholes. It's not my job, you know?
Yeah.
But
that shit used to bum me out so bad, dude. You got this really killer show, and the pit is completely cleared out for 6 assholes throwing karate kicks at each other, you know, and no one can enjoy anything going on around them. You're just like, damn, dude. I hated that shit, man. It just bums me out.
Yeah, you know, but it's up to the crowd to police themselves, and it's up to the crowd, if they don't like it, to say, hey, quit being fucking assholes. You know, they can't, you know. That was the thing that we did when we were kids. And sometimes you got to get a fat lip and a black eye, you know, to make your point be known, you know. And again, they, you know, if I'm at a hardcore show, they don't need a 55-year-old dude telling them how it is.
Right.
They don't.
They really don't. What's going on?
Back in my day, you know. Yeah.
Back in my day.
I always did like, you know, I always did like when the crowd would correct the behavior. You know what I mean? I was at a show one time and there was like a couple guys, and it was like so inappropriate to even start throwing karate kicks. It was a fucking punk show, you know. These guys start kicking, and literally the crowd picked one of the guys up and crowd surfed him out of the back. Like he had no choice. They just like he was on top of the crowd, and everyone's just kind of waffling him back out of the fucking. And they landed like at the back side of the stage, you know, or the back side of the venue. You're like, I guess he's done, you know. Fuck, dude. You know?
I would have loved to have seen that.
Yeah, it was awesome, man.
Hilarious. I didn't learn until later today, but like today actually was a year ago. Today was I played my last live show since COVID, the Little Class Brats. We played a festival in Florida. I think it was kind of north of Miami. Like we played it at Respectable Street. What city is that? Tampa?
Respectable Street is Tampa.
Is it Tampa?
It's Tampa, or like what is that right above it? What's that?
Or
right
Fort
above?
Lauderdale? I can't remember.
I don't know. I have no idea.
We actually, a year ago today was the last show I played, and one of the coolest things happened. This punk from Austin was at the thing, and she crowd surfed on an inflatable dolphin while we played.
Hell yeah, man!
And that kind of goofy, fun stuff is like one of the things that I like about shows and stuff. But so if that is the last time I ever play, at least I got to say I saw a punk maiden crowd surfing on a dolphin. You know,
Yeah,
and if
yeah.
I go out like that would be okay.
Respectable Street is in West Palm. That's that
West
like,
Palm Beach. That's it.
that's that art place, right?
Yeah.
It's like an art place, and and like the green rooms up, like outside and upstairs.
Yeah, outside and up
And
the
the lady that runs it is a little she's a little kooky. Who she is.
I didn't have any interaction. We didn't have any interaction with that. It was our friends that rented out the place, and it was a really cool like Blank 77 punk fest thing.
Yeah.
I went there. We were there. I was there with Strung Out Casualties last time we played there.
Okay.
And that lady that runs it, she's very Miami. You know?
Yeah.
Like
Florida, man.
Like
Florida is
it's a different world, man.
It's just a trip down there. It's just like, hey, everything's, you know.
Yeah.
America's dong.
It's an interesting place. It's an interesting place.
Yeah, man.
Well, shit, Ron. Thanks for coming on with us, man. We appreciate
man.
Talking.
Yeah, thanks for asking. This was cool.
Yeah. No, it was good. It was good to chat. It was good to see you. Is there anything you want to put out there in the world for people to check out?
Let's see. My social media, if you want to see a lot of videos of my cats and me showing my record collection, you can follow me at Ron Conflict on Instagram. Lower Class Brats, we're going to be re-releasing the new Seditionaries on vinyl in a few months, and then after that our new record comes out, which is Tales of the Wild, the Ugly, and the Damned. Let's see, if you need your music transferred from analog into the digital format, I could do it. I have a home studio. I've been doing stuff for some record labels and archiving, whether it's taking your demo cassette and bring it in the digital realm or vinyl, and I could do different formats. You can contact me through my Instagram as well for that.
That's cool, man.
I actually just did a thing for a COC Corrosion Conformity reissue. That's going to be a double album set, and the second LP is the demo versions of the album. And they did not have the actual reels of the demos, but they had it from cassettes that belonged to Reed, actually Reed Mullen gave to a buddy of mine. And I did all the analog to digital transfers for that. That's coming out like in about 3 or 4 months or something. But yeah,
it's amazing, man.
That's cool.